Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes. We've
Unbelievable.
made contact. Awesome. Uh,
Holy crap.
Very cool. Yeah, I'm really sorry about this. The Be Live stuff is terrible. But yeah, glad we made it here. Really excited about it. And thanks a
We're
lot
here
for
now.
doing
We're
this.
here now, man.
Exactly. And
I'm
thanks to
I'm
everybody.
happy to do it.
Awesome. Yeah, and thanks to
Yeah,
everybody. Kevin, we really appreciate the help, and everybody else who's been sticking with us through this trial. But cool, yeah. I'm Jonathan Newar. We're here live with Captain Drew Downing of Down East Charters out of Chatham, Massachusetts. And yeah, I just feel really fortunate, to have this conversation and in front of a few people so that they can ask their questions, about your amazing trips. I've been lucky enough to go out with Steve and my mom and my family and have a great time out with you. That was, one of your, nearshore striper trips, which is an absolute blast, but, excited to hear more about your bluefin tuna trips. And then also, your striper on the fly trips too. So, just have a few questions here that we can run through, but it's pretty much just, open air. Um, so yeah,
sure, man.
thanks again.
Well, well, thanks for having me. And before we get started, I'm going to blame all of this on my poor internet connection. I live way out in the middle of nowhere, Vermont, in the wintertime, and I didn't know it was possible. I'm not computer illiterate, but it was a struggle to get here. So I'm just stoked to be here now.
Yeah, definitely.
But yes,
Much,
dude, thank you for the introduction.
definitely. Yeah, yeah. Cool.
And
Well, yeah, was just going to kick it off and, just ask for the kind of standard intro, full name, company name. Where do you operate out of?
sure, Captain Drew Downing. I'm out of Chatham, Mass. I've been running my business. This is my 10th year down there. We're in a really cool spot. For those of you guys who don't know the Cape that well, I'll throw it up here one time. It's right on the elbow. So we're close to the Atlantic Ocean, the furthest out, in fact, in the Atlantic, and we've got warm water from Nantucket Sound that comes from our west and mixes with all that cold water, and we get lots of bait, and we've got a bunch of different things we can fish for, from real shallow stuff and bay boat stuff to the shipping lanes and inshore tuna and groundfish. So it's a really cool place to fish. And yeah, we try to do a little bit of everything, man. We start early in the year fishing some squid and sea bass and some bottom fish. They're the first things that show up.
Yeah.
And then we start seeing small striped bass, and we keep going, man. Yeah, please stop me.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can talk about that for a long time.
No, that was great. So yeah, where are you from, and what was it like growing up there? Did you do a lot of fishing? Who introduced you to fishing? That kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a weirdo. I'm the first one in my family to run a boat. Most of my fishing when I was younger was from shore. We'd walk the beaches. My stepdad is the biggest influence on me that way, and my real dad, same deal, man. He didn't like fishing necessarily as much as I do, but always wanted to bring me out there. And we'd go out and we'd come down, and you could, back in the mid 90s to late 90s, you could walk the beaches and catch bass almost everywhere.
Yeah.
There was a big resurgence, in the late 90s to the mid 2000s. And so we used to fish from shore. And one day I said, well, I'd like to maybe get a skiff and try this from the ocean side. So got a small boat, and the rest is history.
Nice. That's awesome. So
Yeah,
yeah,
man. Yeah.
along those lines, when in that journey did you start guiding, and what have your experiences been like throughout your guide career?
Yeah. So I got my license, I think, in 2011. And prior to that, I had been commercial fishing for a few seasons, for striped bass and bluefish and sea
Hmm.
bass and squid. And at that point, I hadn't caught any tuna fish yet, but I knew I wanted to go fishing for them. And I liked it so much that I went and I had my seat time, so I went and got my ticket. And at that point, yeah, man, the light kind of came on for me. It was less about how many fish we're going to kill and more about how do I get these guys into on a daily basis. How do I show them a great time, a
Right.
safe time, and kind of live vicariously through my charter guest.
Yeah.
And it's so fun, man. It's so fun showing people the resource. Some days are better than others, but in general, we're in a really good spot. I've been fortunate enough to fish with you a couple times, and we go out there, we find them, and we have a good time doing it.
Yeah. So if you had to say, if you had to pick one attribute, about being a guide or a charter captain, what would you say is your favorite part of it all?
I just think we get to do things that civilians don't get to do all the time, which is you make your own schedule. You have a
Yeah.
coffee as the sun's coming up, and it's a pretty sweet office, except when it isn't.
Yeah.
But most days, there's nothing I would rather do.
Yeah.
And everybody's different, right? Everyone's different. Everyone has different goals. Everyone has different levels of proficiency. But we talk about that on the dock. We hit the water. We keep it safe and fun. And depending on how experienced the anglers are, we
Hmm.
do a bunch of stuff, man. And it's we build a trip basically by each individual person that comes and gives us a ring. We'll build a trip that's fun and safe.
Yeah. That's awesome. So is there, one
Thanks.
specific, is there one specific area that you would say is your favorite to fish consistently?
You know, it's all fun. I think New England in general and the North Atlantic,
Hmm.
as soon as you get, um, you're always excited, right? Because the seasonality, everything changes month by month, and so you're very stoked at the beginning of your year to just get your boat ready and get
Yeah.
on the water. And you start your season, you catch some small fish, and you're having a blast. And then as soon as you start to maybe not necessarily get bored, but as soon as you get your fill of that, something else happens. Now the
Yeah.
fishing is on monomoy where the squid runs on, bigger stripers, bluefish. You do that for a month and a half, 2 months. Okay, great. That's super fun. That's ongoing. And then all of a sudden the tuna fish show up.
Wow.
And so my point is, as soon as you kind of feel like, yeah, this is great, something else comes along that you can target. And that
Yeah.
goes all the way to the end of the year with false albacore and some other critters. So yeah, I think I like them all, man. I really do. That's the answer. Obviously, I love tuna fishing, but it depends on
Mhm.
on when you ask me. If you ask me early in the year, I like striped bass fishing a lot.
That's awesome. Can't go wrong. So yeah, can you describe your trips a
No,
little bit? um, but yeah, just kind of telling everybody about the different trips. You have the kind of near
sure.
shore striper trips, the half day, full day. You have the fly fishing trips. You have the tuna. So yeah, just take it away on that.
I will absolutely. So up until this point, I don't know. At some point, I may add a captain, but it's just me. So I usually do 2 trips a day every day, with the exception of things that are out of the ordinary. I obviously do full trips and
Hmm.
offshore stuff too. But I got 2 boats this year, new this year. I have a 20-foot Jones Brothers with a
Right.
polling platform. It's 3 angler max. Ideally, it's 2 anglers. That's a cool little boat, man. It's got a Yami 150, and
Hmm.
it's like a little big boat, so you can take it where you want to go for the most part. But it excels in shallow water stuff. And for those of you who don't know, we have an area called Monomoy, which is about a 9-mile peninsula with some Bahama style white sand on the west edge, and you can sight fish to your heart's content over there with fly and spin. So that's a really cool trip, and that's an early season trip.
So can I just
Main
stop you right
vessel,
there?
yeah,
How
yeah,
how
man, sure,
how deep are you getting? When you're talking about skinny water, how skinny is skinny in the Jones Bros?
sure. So the cool thing about that is that as much as I love to fish from a boat, I encourage my anglers when we do trips like that to bring waders because we
Awesome.
can bring the boat in, and we've got a big tide. We got a huge tide swing here, man. So
Hmm.
it can be, 2, 3, 4, 5 feet on some tide cycles, and we'll nose the boat in there pretty shallow, and then you can actually hop out. We get a little ladder. You can hop out, walk around, get to some spots that the boat can't get to, and whether it be me calling out for fish from the boat or we
Hmm.
see them together as we walk around, you can fish for an hour or two, get back in the boat, move it a little bit closer or further out, depending on what tide we're fishing. So I think it's good to go in about a foot of water, maybe 20 inches of water. But
Awesome.
at that point, you can get out and walk around and go into some real skinny stuff, which is cool.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, because I've been out there, and I mean, you can sight fish for stripers in 10 8 feet of water. So if they're if they're all the way up in a foot, that's a really fun experience. That's really cool. And so are
It's
you?
humbling, man. It I was gonna
Yeah.
say, it's humbling, right? You get refused. The shallower you go, the more refusals you get.
Yeah.
And
No.
if you get refused, that's okay, man, because you're watching that whole thing unfold right in front of you. So it's really cool.
Yeah.
I tell people a lot. It kind of reminds me of bow hunting, because you're sitting there with your rod and your line all coiled up, ready to go,
Hmm.
and you may have a great day and not fire an arrow. At
Hmm.
least in this case, we're gonna cast on some fish, but a lot of it is the hunt.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, it's really popular down here along the Texas coast to go fly fishing for redfish, and so that's kind of uh, right or wrong, kind of what I'm comparing it to in my head. So, are you using an 8 weight rod, or and what kind of flies are you throwing at them?
Sure. Um, so if there's no wind, an 8 weight's fine. You can go between 8 and 10 weight. 10 weight is more for bigger fish down at the rips. There's some big
Makes sense.
tidal
Yeah.
currents and sandbars if people aren't familiar. 8 weight's fine. It depends on what you want to do, but you can hedge your bets and fish an intermediate line or a sink tip line, and any little juvenile sand eel is a number one kind of go to all the time. I have a
Hmm.
friend who does well with crab flies. I've seen bay anchovy flies. I've seen surface popper flies. There's a lot of stuff that works depending on what they're into, but something small and sparsely colored when the water's clear.
Huh. Yeah. Makes sense. Cool. Cool. Well, yeah.
Yeah,
Then
man.
I guess
Yeah,
I guess
absolutely.
we're off to fish in the rips. And if you could describe that experience a little bit for people, because that's really cool. You're just off at Monomoy, or even kind of in the middle of nowhere, and then all of a sudden there's this rip and stripers right under it.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Cape in general, at least for us in our area, is this massive pile of deeper water and shallow water, and it's all soft bottom. It's a lot of sandbars, and so on one tide cycle, it's running west to east. On the other tide cycle, it's running east to west, and then you've got a northerly and a southerly component to it as well. When you get to the east side of Monomoy in the ocean, you start to see a north south. So what that means is that it almost looks like a river, right?
Right.
You're
Right. Completely.
you
Yeah.
put the boat in you put the boat in neutral. You put the boat in neutral, and you might drift for a couple miles, and you'll see all these standing waves uh, out in the ocean, some 3, 4, 5, 7 miles offshore, and it's big depth changes from 10 feet to 30 feet, or
Hmm.
in some cases 3 feet to 10 feet.
Right.
And when the tide's running, there's a whitewater wave there, and it's bringing bait across the sandbars right to these fish. um,
Yeah.
when it's clear and sunny out, you're seeing the fish in the waves, man. It's super exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean those tides are crazy. It really is tricky because they can be different in certain points. They're not as drastic. I guess as like the low country of South Carolina or somewhere like that. But I mean, they're just kind of tough to read. Can you talk about that a little bit? And I mean, that just kind of proves more to the point that you really need a guide out there. Not just to read the tides and know where to fish when, but also it can be kind of a safety thing when that some of those rips do get to 3 feet, 2 feet. You can get into some trouble there if you're not careful.
No doubt, man. So there's dozens and dozens of historic shipwrecks there because you look like
so you have
good,
to look
you're
out for
offshore,
those too now.
right?
Crazy.
You think you're good, you're offshore, you're not close to land, and all of a sudden, some years there's a spot on Handkerchief that's about 3 miles from the closest piece of land, and it goes to bare sand. You can get out and stand up on it. So you got to be careful and sprinkle in, 50% of the time we're out there, it's foggy.
Oh, wow.
So
Yeah.
you can't see anything. So you gotta have good pins on your GPS setup where you want to go.
Mm-hmm.
You got to have, from a fisherman perspective, early in the year, a tide that goes east-west might be productive. And then a different time of year, a tide that goes west to east might be productive based on what the fish are doing and the temperature of the water and the bait that's coming across.
Right.
So you need to know why you're going to a spot and when to go there. And the best way to do it is there's an Eldridge pilot book that has all the tides and currents. And what you're looking for is less about the tide and more about the currents. And there's a couple little things there around Monomoy. If you look at the currents, that's what you want to see.
Very cool. Awesome.
That's
cool.
it, man. Yeah, absolutely.
And then, can we talk about the tuna trips and what those are like? Because those are, I'm working on a blog article right now for our blog and, doing a bucket list thing. And that's definitely, spoiler alert, one of the bucket list trips that I have set for myself. But because sometimes you guys run a good bit offshore, to the canyons. It is right, and then but then sometimes you can catch them within sight of the shoreline, right? So can you talk about those two different dynamics and just kind of how those trips work?
Absolutely. So let me put a wrap on striper fishing.
Okay, sorry.
Saying, so we do the inshore. No, it's all good. So we do the inshore fly fishing stuff out of the small boat. Then the other boat is a 26 regulator classic. Great boat to do most everything. And we'll fish bass basically from the end of June till, September, maybe October, depending on the years and what people want to do. And those trips are, that's the bread and butter in the summer. Those are, 4.5-hour trips or a full day trip. You time it around the tides. You go out, you fish a bunch of different light tackle. I don't do any trolling really. It's mostly cast and jig or live bait fishing. That fishery is outstanding. It's one of the best places in the world to catch striped bass. So that's going on all summer. And then, like you segued to very nicely, the tuna fish show up. And some years it's in June. The last 2 years it's been in July when they show up. And then it's go time, right? So right, you don't know if they're there unless you go and look for them. And like any fishery, you got to put some miles on the boat. So the canyon fishery is different. That's a warm water fishery. It's about 110 miles southeast of Chatham.
Wow.
You can do it. A lot of guys do it, but you're catching everything that you guys see down in the Gulf and along the Florida coast. I mean, we got wahoo and yellowfin and big eye tuna and marlin. That's a big commitment, but you can do it. You just need nice weather to go do it in a go fast boat.
Yeah.
Now the inshore tuna that we see are bluefin exclusively. So north of, east and north of Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard, we're getting only bluefin. And it depends on what time of year it is and what we're seeing. They can be anywhere from 40, 50, 60 pounds to 1,200 pounds.
Wow.
So you got to bring a bunch of different tackle and think about what you're doing. You don't want to hook the wrong fish with the wrong rod.
Yeah.
So we do it, for me, mostly the fall, September and October is the best fishing for all styles of tuna fishing. They're just here. They're resident at that point. They're around. That's when we can cast spinning rods at them and catch smaller fish typically. If they're not tiny ones, and when I say tiny, I say up to about 200 pounds, we start fishing 80 wides with bent butt rods, and we fish mostly live bait and a couple different ways to catch them that way. And you never know, man. You never know what you're going to get into. We do some commercial trips for them, which we're targeting those big ones if they're around. And then we do a ton of spinning rod fishing for them as well, which
That's
is,
fun.
if you ask me, yeah, if you ask me what I get excited about, it's casting a plug at tuna fish that are busting on the surface, because there's nothing like it, man. You better hold on after you set the hook as hard as you can. When I take you out this year, you're going to set it as hard as you can, minimum of 3 times, and then you're going to hold on.
Wow.
And
it's just going to scream.
You think you want the rod? They go crazy, dude. You think you want the rod, and about 20 minutes later, you're going to look at me and go, I don't know, man. Can somebody grab this thing? But it's epic.
That's awesome.
You know?
Teamwork makes the dream work. If you got to hand it off, you got to.
Absolutely a team sport.
That's awesome. Mm-hmm. Man, that gets me excited, just sitting here right now.
Absolutely, man. And so I think that within 50 miles, right, my boat's certified for 50-mile, east of Chatham. Mm-hmm. 50 miles brings you down to the shipping lanes, east of the islands. It brings you up to Stellwagen Bank off of P-Town. If you're not finding them in your big loop out there, they're probably that's not your day. But most days, that's plenty of mileage to go find them. And like you said, depends on the year. One of the beauties of Chatham is that we have so much bait and marine life right offshore that a lot of times they're within 3, 4, 5 miles from shore.
Wow.
So you're right there.
So how,
how
how deep is that? I was just going to ask, like what's the range, that you can catch them at?
So every year I go, I doubt they're in here. And sometimes I'll be like astounded because they'll be real close to the beach. But I think when you get to 80 feet deep, you're in Tuna Town. So 80 feet, a lot of times 80 to like 140 feet is the spot.
Prime time.
They will come in and chase stuff inside of that, but if you get to 80 feet deep, it's game on.
That's awesome. Very cool.
Yeah, it's crazy, man.
That's a blast. Awesome. So, I mean, what would you say makes your trips different?
Well, I think that there's a lot of guys that do a great job, and I'll use this moment to mention some. My buddies Matt and Andrew over at Blue Water do a great job. My buddy Jeff at Zen Charters does a great job. Greg Weisel, Dragonfly. There's a whole bunch of guys that do a good job.
Mm-hmm.
What makes my trip different, I guess, is that a lot of guys have their own niche, right? They're very good at catching a bass on jigging rods. They're a big boat, and all they do is they go tuna fishing. I guess when you give me a ring, I feel just as comfortable doing that flats trip as I do going on a giant tuna trip. And I think that a lot of people may balk at it. If a client wants to do something different, I'm stoked on that. Like, yeah, sure, let's do it. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that makes me different or not, but I'm excited to fish for whatever they want to fish for.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna take you on a trip that you don't want to go on.
Yeah, no, I'd say that's a huge difference. I mean, just in this conversation alone, we've talked about, casting these flies to, to stripers in, a foot of water, to chasing bluefin tuna for, what's it called? You've got a little word for it, the Chatham sleigh ride or something.
Chatham sleigh ride, man.
Ah, there you go. Nailed it.
For those of you who don't know, for those of you who don't know, it originated as the Nantucket sleigh ride, and it comes from whaling, right? And back in the whaling days, Nantucket was the biggest whaling port in the world. And what they would do is they would throw a harpoon into the back of a whale out of a wooden dory, and they would cleat the thing off on the boat, and they would just get pulled until the whale got tired. So you equate that to tuna fishing. The furthest we've ever been towed is 12 miles,
Wow.
and it happens. And it's
Wow.
when you have a real angry fish in a small boat, and you go, okay, he's just going to go that way for a long time. It's
So what
wild,
do
man. It's
you just
it's the
kick back,
final
have a
frontier.
beer?
It's a little more active than that, but you try not to get frustrated. You try to live in every moment and just go, okay, like that fish is just, he wants to do that. We're going to go that way for a while.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden 2 hours pass, and then
Wow.
another 2 hours go by, and you go, oh shit, what's happening right now?
Yeah.
And that's part of the excitement.
That's awesome.
So
That's an absolute
it could
blast.
happen.
Yeah, it could happen this summer, late summer, who knows?
It could
Um,
happen.
so what's it like when you put somebody on a fish or on their first fish? What's that moment like for you?
It's why I go fishing, right? It's at this point in my life, I still love catching them. I try to fish with people depending on how it goes. I found that me having my line in too is usually good, in the sense that I can demonstrate some things to people, maybe hook a fish or two and show them how to do it.
Hmm.
But when someone else hooks a fish, especially if it's their first time to our region, um, I'm stoked, dude. Completely stoked on it, because
Yeah.
they've demonstrated that they're a good listener, and they see what's going on. They appreciate the fishery. They're having a blast. If it's something they want for the table, I'm all for slicing a couple up at the end of the day. And that's what it's all about, man. Is having fun. There's no pressure from me other than, hey, I'm going to keep it. I'm going to make sure you have a safe day and give you the best shots to catch these special fish that I can do. Um, but yeah, when everything comes together and they catch a few, especially tuna fishing, you get a
Mhm.
couple bites and you get one in the boat. It's group hug, man. It's that cool. It's emotional
Yeah,
celebration for sure.
that's awesome. Yeah, along those lines, why do you do it day in and day out? What gets you up in the morning?
Oh man, I always tell people, I go, we could all be sitting around digging a ditch somewhere, right? Um, which there's no slight on that, right? Somebody's got to do it, but we get to go fishing. We get to go fishing, and the fishery is good, man. It's a good fishery.
Yeah.
The tuna fishery has come way back in the last 10 to 15 years. You really feel like you have a good chance to connect with fish almost every time you go out there, at least see them. It's exciting, man. If it was the same every day, I wouldn't be excited, but it's different.
Right.
It's different all the time. So yeah, you get up early, you grab a coffee, you get the boat on the dock. You got guys coming down. We're chatting about what we're doing with the boat all lit up. It's exciting. It's an adult Easter egg hunt. We're gonna go find them,
That's a good one. I like that. I haven't heard that one.
right?
That's awesome. That's great. So if you had to choose, one specific memory that stands out, what would be your number one memory as a guide?
We got so many, man. So many of good experiences with fellow captains, commercial fishing for tuna fish. So many good experiences with first timers on the boat that have never been up here before. I'll give you two stories, okay?
Perfect.
One, I ran the boat all day long. I had two little tiny kids who'd never fished before, and I had their parents, and we went everywhere looking for fish. And we drove the boat 100 miles, and it looked like a goose egg. It was that the ocean was that dead. So
Hmm.
finally, we always have some sand sharks around. I go, you guys want to catch some sharks? Now I don't fish for dogfish. I don't try to. It's not glorious. But we ran the boat, and I put some bait on, and we dropped it to the bottom, and we caught some little 2.5, 3 foot sand sharks that are not very good for much of anything. And these kids were so stoked on it. And
Hmm.
I had to give myself a check and go, you know what, man? it's not about what I want to catch. It's about seeing what's going on and reading the room. Okay.
Yeah.
And so those kids had a good time, and the parents gave me a high five and they said, nice work. And so that one's not a glorious one, but it was something fun, and we had to do what we had to do.
That's a good one.
I got a couple here. Boy, Matt and I caught a monster tuna a few years ago. I told you that, the one that towed us 12 miles.
Yeah.
I had some clients out. This was pretty memorable. I had some clients out 2 seasons ago, and we ran the boat about 30 miles south of Chatham to the tuna grounds. They had never casted spin rods for tuna fish before. So we stopped about halfway there, and I go, you guys need to practice this a little bit. It's a 100-pound main line. It's a 4, 5, 6 ounce stick bait.
I think I know where this is headed.
Leader. Like, it's hard. Dude, it's hard to cast, right? It's hard to cast. So, you don't have to cast it that far, but you do need to cast accurately when the fish are around. Mm-hmm. So we talk about it. We get a couple casts in. I said, okay, we're going to keep going. So we ran the boat for another 10 minutes, and I see some tuna fish busting. And I go, oh, shit, guys, right here. And they go, what? I go, there's fish up. And so we moved the boat over there, and the fish, like they do, they come up and down, and they were down. And I go, get your lines out. Let's do some more practice casts. So they cast off the bow, and I take a rod, and I just chuck it way off the stern. Now you're retrieving these plugs back to the boat. So they cast. I cast out. I twitched the plug twice, and it looks like someone threw a grenade out there in the water.
Wow.
Huge white water explosion.
Yeah.
And I set the hook, and I go, guys, we're on. And they go, what? I go, we're on a fish. I go, reel them in. Like, a lot of times you just need to get your lines in because you don't know what you got and what's going to happen. And so this fish was a bigger fish, and it towed us about 5 miles. And this was at about 7:30 in the morning, and we kept fighting that fish till well after lunchtime.
Wow.
And in the 5th hour, we had the fish kind of around the boat. We'd seen it a few times, and it spit the hook out.
Oof.
And that was our day, dude. That was our day. We drove around for another hour and a half, didn't see anything else. And that was the whole trip. And we came back, and you know what? Everybody was like exhausted. There was guys passed out in the bow, but it was that cool. You never know, man. You never know when it's going to happen for you. And that was all we had that day. But those guys, I bet you they won't forget that one.
Oh yeah, no, they'll be back.
It's cool, man.
They got to close the deal. Yeah, that's awesome.
For sure.
So why do you think what you do is important?
Well, I always try to toe the line between, I guess, a small business, the entertainment and value that brings, what it brings to the town, and then the environmental component. So I don't know that it's necessarily important in the grand scheme of things in life. However, I think that fishermen and hunters have always played an active role in conservation and being good stewards. We try to talk about, good ways to release fish. We talk about fishery science, why we have the limits that we do, why, what this fishery stock is and what we need to do to improve on it. There's a lot of things, man. But ultimately it's a really cool way to spend a few hours, and it's very, it's very important. Chatham has such a fishing history that not necessarily sport fishing, but commercial fishing. And so I feel stoked to be sharing the same pier and the same waterways as some guys that are absolute legends. And I think that town really needs to have a strong fisheries component because that was the draw for me to be there. So I think there's a few things that are important about what we do on the water.
Yeah, that's awesome. The history of it and, the fishery itself. How would you say that the current state of affairs is in Chatham? How do you think you said the tuna populations have rebounded, but I don't know, I don't know it well enough or, keep my finger on the pulse of the area well enough to know really, much about the stripers, in their current state, aside that, everybody has an opinion. So, what would be your opinion about things right now?
Well, it's a good time to be a fisherman, unless you ask somebody that is 60 years or older, and they go, "Yeah, everything was great back then, and now it stinks." So
Right.
I always respect those anecdotes, and I go, "Yeah, you're right, man. Just ask someone that fishes for cod, right? There's when you catch a cod now, you catch a few, you're pretty stoked on that because it's a little sliver of what it once was.
Yeah.
So striped bass, human beings are really good at decimating that particular fish, and it's
Hmm.
human nature, if you're unchecked, to keep fishing the hell out of them. And they're an interesting one, right? Because they breed along the Atlantic seaboard from North Carolina to Chesapeake Bay to Long Island to the Hudson River through the Cape and Islands. They swim all the way up to Canada, and everybody gets a piece of those fish.
Yeah.
So their biomass in like 2003 to 2010 was really strong and well rebounded, and then we've kind of hammered on them since then. So I think they're not in it depends on who you ask. I think they're in danger, and I think that the science needs to be accurate. And every year we take a really close look at what the limits are and the retention rates are. I mean, in the last, whatever it is, 5 or 6 years, we've reduced the charter retention by 50%. We used to have two fish. Now we're at one fish.
Right.
This year they're adding a 28 to 34 inch slot for that one fish to try to protect some of the breeders. So yeah, I'd be concerned, right? I'd be concerned if I was a fisheries manager, but I'm hoping that some of the science is accurate enough to keep those things around. It's definitely down a little bit in the last few years, but we're still catching them.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Thanks for that. And, the tuna, are pretty
Absolutely.
healthy. Yeah.
Yeah, the tuna fishery, man. I mean, the last couple of years, the biggest thing that I notice year to year is like what the average size fish is. In
Right.
these last 2 years, it's been a lot of bigger fish. Um, Previous to that, there were mid-sized and small ones. So maybe they're just growing up, right? So there was less chances at catching the small ones with the light tackle, and it was more of like, hey, we better be ready for these fish.
Yeah.
Um, we had some giants last year, big ones. Couple lost a couple big ones. Had one that you saw that was 670. I mean, these are big fish, dude, and that is not appropriate with a spinning rod. So we'll see. Anybody's guess at what's going on this year, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's putting it lightly. Not appropriate with a spinning rod.
Yeah,
Oh man, that's awesome.
not
Um,
appropriate.
so how do you feel about the future of fishing? Just kind of generally.
Man, there's a lot more people on the water now than there's every year. There's more and more people on the water. That's okay. Like, I'm never gonna to poo poo on someone else's parade for coming out there and wanting to participate and be part of the fleet and learn what's going on. It's especially there's a special kind of concerns in Chatham because the waterways are so difficult to navigate.
Right.
It's a sketchy spot to run a boat,
Right.
so I always keep an eye on people that are operating out of Chatham. Um, where does it go? I don't know. I think the internet's tough, right? You and I love it
Hmm.
for sharing information, for sharing reports, for maintaining kind of contact with people that share the same interest. But yeah, you can see back, if we went back in time, if you had something great and you didn't tell anybody about it, a fishing spot, there's nowhere that they would have known that from. And now
Right.
you got people taking pictures of everything
Hmm.
and locations of what they're doing. So I guess my 2 cents is go out, enjoy it, share it with the people that you want to share it with, but be conscious of broadcasting it to the world because there should still be some secrets in the fisheries,
Of
and
course.
it's well kept stuff that you should be proud of for putting the time in.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. That's definitely the fun of it. Very cool.
Right?
Um, Completely. Well, so if you, this is my favorite question here. But
Yeah.
if you had one more
Uh-oh.
cast, yeah, drum roll. If you had one more cast to throw in
Yeah.
your life, what would you throw and where would you be?
Dang, man.
Stumped him.
That is that is a tough one. So for my freshwater friends, I love trout fishing. I love steelhead fishing, particularly. That's
Awesome.
very high up on my list. I've never been fortunate enough to go tarpon or bone fishing, but I really want to.
Mm,
Um, I bet you, the people that I talked to and followed said that there's very few things like a charging tarpon or a bonefish on the flats and getting that take. I like anything that's hard, right? Anything that's a hard thing to do is more rewarding to me. So I think if I went trout fishing in Alaska, it would ruin me. I don't want to catch one every cast, you know.
yeah.
Um, so I'd have to go. I'd have to lean towards the tuna fishery because that fishery emotionally destroys you depending on how your luck is going and what year it is and how it's going. One year, a few years ago, I went 14 trips in a row without a bite. And you
Wow.
go, "Oh, okay." And so how do you keep it, dude, how do you keep getting fired up to go because you don't know what's happening. And on that 15th trip, we had a couple bites, we caught a couple fish, and it was like this wave of awesomeness because we put our time in and we stayed with it.
Yeah.
So I think that anything that's difficult is more rewarding. And so whatever fish that may be, where people say this is a hard one to catch, that's what I would be stoked on catching.
That's awesome. Great answer. Very
Yeah,
cool. So
man.
now,
Thanks,
now,
dude.
yeah, of course, that was awesome. So now, just kind of on the back end here, we just have a few rapid fire questions. So, just kind of first answer that
Let's
comes to
go.
mind, spit it out. Favorite body of water to fish?
Okay. I don't know that many. I gonna say the North Atlantic.
Boom. If you had to be doing something different, what would it be?
Ooh, so I don't know that I have the life skills to do a ton of things. It would probably have to do something with, yeah, it would be something outdoors, right? So you
Hmm.
let me have my coffee in the morning and go out a door, and I'll be stoked on that.
There you go. So what hobbies outside of fishing do you enjoy?
So I've got three little kids, and I love those guys, and I love doing whatever they want to do. I don't push them too hard to do much of anything. They're not really of age to do a ton of stuff that I do just yet. I
Hmm.
love to ski. I'm up
All
in
right.
the Green Mountains of Vermont, so I watched those guys ski this year, and that was cool. I kind of live vicariously through them. I used to play golf once in a while, but you can't be a golfer and a fisherman at the same time. It takes too much time. Um, I John, I think I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, man. There's no place
Nice.
I'd rather be.
That's awesome. So do you have a nickname, and if so, how'd you get it?
Oh boy. Let's see here. I got to tone him down a little bit for the live broadcast. My sister's called me Drewski my whole life. She's
There you
called me
go.
Drewski my whole life. I don't know why. There's probably a few others. I always go by Hey You. If you want to give me a Hey You, I'll give you a Hey You back.
That's great. Yeah, yeah. We'll go offline for those other nicknames, I guess.
Yeah, it's a
Um,
long it's a long list. It's a PDF file.
yeah, yeah. Only for out on the water. Yeah. Yeah. What's
That's
your
right.
favorite song or band right now?
Oh boy. I listen to everything, man. I've been kind of geeking out on bluegrass recently.
Nice.
Live music, like someone like Billy Strings that's that talented makes me go, holy shit, that guy is something special.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. I got an eclectic taste. I'd say bluegrass right now.
Very cool. Favorite movie?
Oh boy, There's about a dozen, you know this, that if they're on, we're gonna watch them.
Yeah.
Starting with the Shawshank Redemption,
Oh,
Top
boom.
Gun,
Heavy hitter.
Armageddon. Yeah, Armageddon. I don't know. Twister. If you want to get weird, I'll watch that one.
Oh man, that's great. Favorite food to pair with those movies?
Anything that is ready to go. I love to cook. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big fan of sushi. There's a real good sushi joint, as you know, in Chatham.
Yeah.
Um, that stuff's delicious. You give me a nice steak and some potatoes and a salad, I'd be pretty happy too. So I'm a big guy. So whatever looks good.
Yeah, gotta let the big dog eat, as we say. Drink of
That's
choice.
right. Boy, I love that water. I love the coffee. I mentioned that a few times. And there's nothing wrong with a cold pop at the end of the day when you got
There you
something,
go.
when you feel like you've accomplished something.
Good stuff. Let's see. Favorite sports team.
Oh boy, well you kind of hit me up, little blindsided
Yeah,
with the
yeah.
Tom Brady stuff earlier. Love my Patriots. I'm still going to root for Tom down in Tampa Bay. Um, I love hockey. Hockey's. I'm bummed
Nice.
out that I can't watch the Bruins play right now. Yeah, I'm kind of a New England nut. I don't lose my mind on any of that stuff, but it's fun to watch them, and if they're especially the amount of success they've had in the last 20 years has been outrageous.
Yeah, it's been insane. I mean, just to touch on that, because it is important, in terms of world events. How are people taking,
Mm-hmm.
the Tom Brady exodus? Um,
Well,
it's really
it's been
like
strange, man,
a
because
royal breakup. Yeah.
well, it's in the middle of all this coronavirus stuff, right? So,
Right.
if it wasn't for COVID-19, I think Boston would be shut down anyways, right? It was that big a news story, um, right? So it's weird though because now they're trying to people that are upset. They're always trying to push blame on somebody,
Hmm.
and they've talked about Kraft, they've talked about Belichick, about all of this, not respecting him enough. I mean, I wish the guy finished his career there. That's just me because it's so
Right.
rare to see
Right.
somebody like that to finish out 20 years in the league in the same team.
Yeah.
But I think Tampa's going to pay him like 30 million or something, maybe more.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
tough. It's tough to pay a 44-year-old quarterback a ton of money. I get it. I wish they did him better and gave him an offer that he would have come back to.
Huh. Interesting. Good take there.
Yeah.
Good stuff. If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
Holy crap. Probably the ability to not piss off my wife or my family.
Oh
Or
man.
be in the, yeah, I don't know. So for me personally, my wife is a superhero because she watches the kids an awful lot
There you
when
go.
I'm
Good
fishing.
answer. Good
And
answer.
so, dude, she's the brains of the operation. I wish that her and I were in the same spot a little bit more, you know?
Yeah. Very cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
Good stuff. What was your last Halloween costume?
Oh boy. I've had some real winners. So I haven't done full dress up for a year or two, but I was the dad from The Incredibles because my kids, I got three of them. They lined up perfect with Baby Incredibles. So
Uh,
let's just say that the store bought costume didn't fit very well, and I didn't wear it that long. But that was my last one.
that's a good one. That's awesome. Gotta love The Incredibles. Let's see. What do you want
It
for
was it was
Christmas?
it was incredible. I got everything I need, my friend.
There you
You
go.
know what I
Good
want? I
stuff.
love I love it when I love it when I once we get the 6 foot distance thing out of the way. I like being surrounded by people that we all enjoy and sharing a meal, cold beverage. That's it. That's the best holiday scenario for me.
There you go. Good stuff. Cheers to that. Can you name one of the seven dwarfs?
Uh, Dopey, Sleepy. I should know this. My kids' movie thing is powers are usually right on. I think I got one. I know I got one or two.
Yeah, Dopey and Sleepy are in there for sure. Um, let's see. How many pull-ups can you do in a row?
I am not in the best health anymore. I'm gonna put the over under on 2 right now.
There you go. Yeah,
I
I
feel
think
good. I'm just.
surprisingly, I
I
think
was just
two
gonna say
might.
I'm a bit.
Uh, oh, go
Yeah,
for it.
that's where it is.
Yeah,
I
I
just
was.
yeah. I'm a I'm a I'm a big fella, so I don't know about that. I can get 2 in though. I think.
There you go. Yeah, that's solid. I think two is above average for how these interviews have been going with some of our guides. So that's great to hear. Um, would you say that LeBron James or Michael Jordan is the best basketball player of all time?
Michael Jordan. End of discussion.
Boom. There you have it. Good stuff.
But I'm
Um,
but I'm old, and I hold on to older things like that.
that's fair. That's fair. That's also been
Yeah.
another favorite amongst our guides. Um, so what's the biggest fish you ever caught?
Oh man. So Matt and I, my roommate Matt Mendoza, who is a charter captain, very talented guy for Blue Water Entertainment. About 5 years ago, him and I were out and with a charter from Chicago, and we hooked a fish and broke it off, and hooked a fish and broke it off, and hooked
Oh,
a fish and broke it off, and I was like, unbelievable, dude. What are we doing? And it turns out nothing really, just luck of the draw. And the charter cap or the charter, this guy David goes, I remember it like it was yesterday. He goes, "Don't worry, Cap, we'll hook another one." And I just smiled because I basically said, "You've never been tuna fishing before," because a lot of times you got to capitalize on your opportunities.
right.
So we got another bite, and we fought the thing for probably about 4 hours on 100, 130 tackle, the biggest, heaviest game
Jeez.
tackle you can fish.
Yeah.
So this fish, the Bluefin Tuna fishery had just closed, so this was a catch and release fish,
Yeah.
and it taped out at 115 inches in the water, which
Jeez.
means it was probably bigger than that.
Right.
And the thing was absolutely massive. We had never seen it until
Jeez.
we leadered it around the motor, and it like came up next to the boat. Absolutely massive. So
That's
pick a
insane.
number between 750 and 1,100 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
it
a
was
winner
it looked
for
like the Red October. It was massive.
sure.
It was a fish story, man. It was a good one.
Y'all
It
get
was
some
very
pics. I
cool.
mean, I'm sure you could only fit. If you're on the boat taking a picture of that thing, you can probably only get the head.
These guys were, two of them were passed out. It was raining. There was a full on rainstorm that came in. Everybody's in like foul weather gear for the last 2 hours, and we got one picture of that fish, and you'll see it. It's the black and white one on my website,
Yeah.
where the fish is in the water alongside the boat, and it's an absolute tank, man. It was the biggest fish that I've ever seen.
Wow.
So there's more of them out there, and that was a special moment for us.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a great takeaway there.
It was cool.
Very cool. Yeah, just the very last thing is just do you want to give a quick shout out to the troops, to wrap things up?
Absolutely, man. I'm gonna start by thanking you because I wish you the best of luck, and you and I have a unique relationship that we get to see each other in the summertime, and that's really fun.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
North Chatham Outfitters, North Chatham Outfitters. Those guys, I'm a charter captain for them. Mike and Scott have a great operation on Route 28 North Chatham. Literally everything you could ever want. Um, Daiwa Fishing. Those guys make some fantastic products. I got all Daiwa stuff, both inshore and all my spinning stuff for offshore. Um, Siren Lures, my boy Jason makes the best tuna plug you can buy. They're fantastic. Check them out. Ron Z, there are soft plastics this season. Those guys make fantastic products as well. Who else we got? Helly Hansen.
Yeah.
My boy Brad Greenwood hooks me up with some Helly Hansen outerwear every year, and that stuff is great on the boat. And I'm sure I'm forgetting some other people. Oh, Outermost Harbor. They are got the best Yamaha tech on Cape Cod, who's right around the corner from us, and they got a great boat sales staff, great operation over there. Um, who else we got? Drew Micah. I got the Stage Harbor Marine. Those guys are fantastic. That's where I store my boat. They are the one of the best deep water harbors in Chatham. They do a lot of masting of sailboats. Drew's got his own company there. And lastly, Chris Cacorda. He's a shore wading guide friend of mine. Fantastic fly tire. We get all our flies from Chris. And if you want to get in touch with any of those guys, you can hit me up anytime.
Okay. Awesome. Well, yeah, really, really appreciate it, Drew. I think this went really well. I'm excited to kind of, to blast this out everywhere we can, get people to learn more about, the Chatham fishery and about your trips. Because they're from first person experience, they're pretty amazing. So thanks for everything that you do. Thanks for sharing with us. And yeah, looking forward to this summer and getting back out there.
I can't wait, man. Everyone be safe and healthy. Relish in this time that you get to spend with your family.
Yeah,
Let's just have this thing. Let's have this thing blow through so that we can resume our lives, do what we want to do, spend time on the water. And I'm super stoked. Thanks for having me on.
of course. Awesome. See you soon, Drew. Take care.
All right, buddy. Take care, guys.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah. Bye.